Hello, my name is Mark Blanco. I'm a nursing student at West Coast University, Orange County. I am currently enrolled in my last year of nursing school, attending my pediatric rotation in Fountain Valley Regional Hospital.
And my name is Trevor Clemente. I'm also a nursing student here at West Coast University in my last year of nursing school to get my bachelor's degree. My pediatric rotation is at Children's Hospital of Orange County.
The article we have chosen is called The Urban Environment in the Childhood Asthma Study, written by an immunologist by the name of Dr. James E. Gurn. The study was published in 2011 in the National Center for Biotechnology Information, a subdivision under the National Institute of Health. Asthma is characterized as the narrowing of the airway that is caused by an allergic immune response. It can lead to signs and symptoms of wheezing, shortness of breath, cyanosis, and the use of accessory muscles. This is easily influenced by numerous components such as environmental and lifestyle factors. In recent years, the number of cases in children diagnosed with asthma have increased, which requires further investigation in order to determine if there are any additional causative agents. Some factors that will be considered in this research includes urban neighborhoods, at least one parent who has a history of an allergic disease or asthma, and children who are predisposed to respiratory illness related to being born prematurely. According to James Gurn, children raised in crowded urban environments have higher rates of asthma in comparison to individuals who are not exposed to environmental pollutants. This factor plays a huge role in acquiring respiratory diseases due to the fact that constant exposure causes hyperstimulation, leading to the release of antibodies immunoglobulin E, causing an allergic defensive reaction. This can lead to more severe respiratory symptoms if prolonged exposure occurs. On the other hand, infants and toddlers exposed to pollutants early in their developmental stage can potentially place them at higher risk of developing a compromised immune response. Gurn hypothesized that children who are exposed to environmental and lifestyle factors during the early stages of life causes an adverse effect on their immune development, thus placing them at a higher risk for acquiring asthma and other allergic diseases. With regards to the sample size, we will be taking 500 individuals for research, which 560 individuals were recruited from 4 studies including Baltimore, Boston, New York, and St. Louis. These study sites were chosen to the fact that families were based on their socioeconomic status. Certain criteria that were required was that families had to live in neighborhoods where at least 20% of the population had income below the poverty line. In addition, one of the parents must have an allergic disease or asthma. Furthermore, participants were recruited prenatally and had to be born at 34 weeks gestation or later. They must be free of respiratory problems in the neonatal nursery in order to be included in the research study. This was an important factor in the study as we needed to know if the urban neighborhood and exposure to pollutants were the main cause of asthma in children. In addition, required criteria, updated evaluations required mothers to respond quarterly telephone questionnaires to assess any changes in the child's respiratory and allergy symptoms, medications, tobacco smoke exposure, and diet. Additionally, expecting mothers were given a pre-test and post-test stress questionnaire as well as a home environment questionnaire which were administered at 3 months and annually thereafter to be completed. A sample of the mother's blood was collected at the child's 12-month visit. This test was utilized in order to see if the mother's immune response has changed during pregnancy and after pregnancy. In other words, it indicates whether the mom's immune response was a contributing factor in the child's asthma development. In addition, the child also undergoes allergy skin testing at selected visits. By emphasizing this test, they are able to check if the child has any allergic immune response to certain exposures. As the child grows older, annual pulmonary function test begins at 3 years old. By this age, the child is able to follow simple instructions. Thus, this is a way to check if adequate lung volume and exchange are able to occur with no restrictions. Other tests the research collected annually were environmental allergens, This was completed by having the staff visit the child's home to collect settled dust for analysis of allergens and selected microbial products. Periodic testing was required in order to estimate longitudinal exposure prior to allergic reaction.
All right, Mark, thank you for that. This study, what it showed was that prenatal exposures and maternal characteristics both affect the immune development and the immune responses that are measurable in cord blood cells. Several selected maternal, perinatal, and newborn characteristics were examined as predictors for the responses of cytokines in the newborns. During the evaluation of these responses, there were immune responses that were most associated with specific predictors, and they included the season of the child's birth, the ethnicity of the child, the birth weight and gestational age, and the history of maternal asthma, including the use of inhaled corticosteroids. By evaluating all of these predictors, the cytokine responses to antigens in the blood were evaluated and were associated between maternal and child characteristics and the antigen-induced response in cord blood cells. Amongst the findings as well, Gurn was able to determine that of half of the observed cytokine responses varied by season in which the birth occurred, meaning that the child's immune response was directly influenced by season. The ethnicity of the child seemed to have no value as a predictor to asthma, since the study was done on primarily African American and Hispanic mothers and children. This showed that ethnicity of the test group had non-specific responses, eliminating ethnicity as a contributing factor to asthma. The study also found that low birth weights showed a positive immune response with specific cytokine responses, primarily to the cytokines named IL-8, but not IFN-Y, meaning that an underdeveloped immune system caused by low birth weight had connections with the possibility of contracting childhood asthma. The most interesting finding in the study was that of babies born to mothers with a history of asthma. Gurn found that babies who were born to asthmatic mothers actually produced the lowest amount of cytokine response when the blood was analyzed, which concluded that these babies were actually less susceptible to acquiring childhood asthma. It is sort of like a pre-exposure protection to the baby. They were already subjected to it, and their immune systems were able to prevent the mother's immune response from creating an asthmatic response in the baby. The results found were also not random. The development of the fetal immune system during perinatal and postnatal periods showed definitive responses to maternal characteristics and experiences. Even though the maternal influence on the baby may be partially mediated by genetics, it was also found that seasonal variations suggest that environmental mechanisms also affect the developing immune system of the baby. The study provided a lot of information on factors that can influence the development of asthma, including viral infections, environmental factors, and the immune system development early in life. In the United States, however, the incidence and morbidity of asthma is greater in urban areas, yet there is relatively little information at this point in time to definitively tie high-risk environments to early life exposures and asthma in childhood. The whole study was performed to attempt to identify mechanisms in urban areas that could cause alterations in immune development in children that could subsequently lead to asthma. And while there are still no definitive ties to urban environment exposures, the evidence found so far is promising towards finding out the exact root causes for increasing incidence of the development of early childhood asthma. As far as the strengths and limitations of the studies go, there are strengths in the subjects utilized. The subject proved to be of high value, and the results led to quality information to study and analyze for connections. By using pregnant mothers, mothers with asthma, and evaluating other factors contributed to highly important results relating to the immune responses of unborn and newborn babies. A very simple weakness was found, though. The weakness was that initially the sample size was relatively small when considering the objective of the study. If the study was conducted on a larger scale, the findings of the study could have led to a more definitive connection between the urban environment and the development of childhood asthma. On a plus side, though, the results from the smaller size study leads to the promise of future studies to see if the results are the same nationwide and will help to further explore and determine causes of childhood asthma, especially in urban areas. Choosing this article was a very easy choice simply because asthma in children is becoming a larger problem than ever before. As more and more people enter the world, the cities get more congested, more waste piles up, and more pollution and contaminants enter the environment we live in. This study served to continue to analyze if these major factors are setting back our younger population with respiratory illnesses, hindering their development into adulthood. Not only that, but by actually finding a definitive connection to childhood asthma, there could be a solution to preventing the occurrence of childhood asthma before it even begins. We found it very interesting to read about the different immune responses between the mother and the unborn baby, and even the cord blood cells' response to various types of potential triggers and contributing factors to asthma. While this study may not have been a huge step in the direction of finding a cause, it does provide a path to follow to gain a deeper understanding of childhood asthma on a more widespread scale. There is evidence of specific connections, but it would involve continuous studies and a deeper understanding of the immune responses of both the mother and the baby. To conclude, we learned that the human body is a really delicate, fragile, and extremely complex system of other systems which entail the very basis of life, from individual atoms to molecules to chemicals and to the cells and organs, and even the specific responses of the body. There is much to be learned in the study of childhood asthma. We also learned that the unborn baby is directly influenced by maternal characteristics and exposures, and that this influence could play a huge role in figuring out the contributing factors to childhood asthma based on their immune responses. We learned that the environment has the potential to create immune responses in the mother and baby that create unfavorable outcomes in the light of childhood asthma. And without a way to prevent these exposures, there's a possibility that childhood asthma will only continue to increase. We would like everyone to remember that as something as little as this, as little as it may seem, such as the air we breathe, the impact the environment has on everyone can have dire and destructive consequences. We want everyone to remember that we must think of the future of our generations, that by carrying on as we do, health problems will only continue to grow at alarming rates.
Thank you, Trevor, and I hope you enjoyed our study.
Thank you.